Hey epic gamers, and welcome back to yet another fantastic video, or what I think will be a fantastic video. So today I am going to be ranking all of the Wizard101 worlds, minus a few. I'm not counting the 4 dungeons as world, which for some reason KingsIsle has listed on their website as a world, but it's literally just 4 dungeons, so how is that a world? Like, don't include that on your website, what? Also, I have not fully played through Imperia Part 2. I actually just killed Medulla like a few weeks ago, or like a week or 2 ago, so I haven't really gotten that far into Imperia, so we're not counting that, and we're also not counting Wisteria, because whoever does Wisteria, not me. Before we start this video, I just need to preface, we will certainly not agree on my ranking, and that's okay. So you don't have to get mad at me in the comments. This isn't like Soviet Russia. We don't need to like kill each other in order to get one opinion for everyone. It's fine if you disagree, okay? We can calmly disagree, and you can calmly know that my opinion is just more right than yours is. As well as I've never done winter tests. Okay, that's all. Let's get into the video. Number 15, Croctopia. I hate Croctopia. If I don't want to start a new character, most of the reason is because I know I can finish Wizard City in like a couple hours, but Croctopia is just such a pain in the ass to get through that I won't want to start a new character. It's just, I can't deal with Croctopia. It's too much. I hate this world because the quest line is repetitive. The side quests aren't riveting or fun at all. Every little area looks the exact same. And Croctopia is really long for being the first unlockable world. Maybe since it's so early on in the storyline, I've done Croctopia so much, besides Wizard City, but it seems like Croctopia is longer than any other world in the entire game. And I don't know if that's like statistically correct or if it's just my mind that makes it just feel like it's so long. But oh my god, it just drags on and on and on. I also don't understand why KI made a world where everything is so spaced out. I swear to god, from going from one quest area to another is like more than 500 feet away, and that's kind of a lot. Like, I didn't realize this until I made a new character with my cousin that just started the game and doesn't have a mount. But going about Wizard City and Croctopia and Marleybone and the rest of the world until you can finally buy one with gold, it's like a trudge. You definitely will not have enough money until like the end of Croctopia to get a mount. The fact that KingsIsle thought it was a good idea to make everything so incredibly spaced out in the first world is kind of really strange to me. Even with the mount, it's kind of a trudge to get from point A to point B. I just don't understand why they made everything so spaced out in Croctopia. I will admit though, it is a pretty interesting world if you don't know the concept. I will get into that in a second. But it's pretty interesting considering that it was so early on in the game and KingsIsle probably didn't have that much experience considering Wizard101 was their first official game. So Croctopia was once home to the Crocs, and the Crocs reawakened the Manders and enslaved them. However, I think the point of getting this concept across is executed really poorly. And if you don't really read the dialogue, which I know that I don't read dialogue, I had to Google that concept to know what Croctopia was all about, then when you see the title above the Manders' names, because they are mobs that you have to kill for a quest at one point, when you see enslaved Mander above the mob's head, it's kind of jarring. Obviously, once you read into the dialogue a bit, the concept of, oh, enslaved Manders, okay, that makes sense, that gets across, but just seeing enslaved Manders above mob's head, it's really strange. However, another thing that happened when I was playing with my cousin and we were doing Croctopia was we were walking around and like we were seeing these dogs. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when you do Marleybone has a lot of the relics that are from Croctopia. So me and my cousin thought that they were playing into history, and since England is supposed to be representative of Marleybone, and in history, England normally took over developing countries like India and South Africa. We thought that King Zal was playing into history and that the Marleybone dogs were actually enslaving the Manders, which wasn't the case. It's actually the Crocs that are enslaving the Manders. So when you go around and you're seeing these dogs everywhere, the first thing that we thought was, oh yeah, certainly it's the dogs that are actually the perpetrators of the enslaving and not the Crocs. Because it seems like since the Manders and the Crocs coexist in the same world, it seems like they kind of live together in harmony. Wow, I'm getting like really Mushu right now. What is even going on? But no, it really is the Crocs from the same world as the Manders that are enslaving, and the Marleybone dogs, I'm not sure, they're just kind of there. Another reason that I really dislike Croctopia, I don't consider Croctopia to be that important to the 3 overarching storylines in Wizard101. So the reason that your wizard actually comes to Croctopia is to get the key to revive Malister's wife, which is the bitch you see at the end of Dragonspire when you're fighting Malister. You see her like come back for a second like she's some like ghost in Harry Potter or some shit.
Hello. How are you?
So you're trying to steal the key back from him, and the guy ends up making a run for it, and you get it, but then the whole storyline is repeated again in Marleybone. It's literally the exact same storyline in Marleybone, except in Marleybone, it's Meowiarty that steals it, whereas in Croctopia, it's like, it's kind of just sitting there, and Dude and Malister are going for it at the same time, and you end up getting it, but then you don't get it, and then Meowiarty still. I'm still kind of confused about how the storyline works. It's like so irrelevant to the plot, and you know, you could say, oh well, Marleybone is bad too then if you think Croctopia is bad, but like Croctopia is like a poor execution. Like the world as a whole is just like such a poor everything, whereas Marleybone's like, I'll get into it further down the list. Marleybone's just a better execution of the world in general. The worlds really do improve as you go on through the game, that is for sure, because I can tell you I enjoyed Marleybone a million trillion times more than I ever enjoyed Croctopia. So let me put it like this. The storyline for the first 2 unlockable worlds are, oh yeah, some guy tries to steal the Croconomicon, you get it back. Another guy tries to steal the Croconomicon, you get it back. By the way, I just want to let you know that the Croconomicon is so irrelevant to the rest of the plot. Considering there's 2 more storylines after this whole Croconomicon bullshit, can you imagine like how irrelevant this plotline is in the whole of things? Like, why is it such a big deal if Malister gets his wife back? Maybe he would stop being such a disgusting, gross human being if he were to get his wife back and like have somebody to love him in his life. I don't know. Just give him the Croconomicon. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen, to be honest? We wouldn't have to go through all of this if you would just give him the damn Croconomicon. I don't understand why an item that is so useless to the rest of the plot of the game takes up 2 whole worlds. It's like King Zal couldn't think of anything else for the first 2 worlds that inaugurate people into their game. Like, I really, it's like mind melding why they did that. And like I mentioned before, if I refuse to start a new character, or if someone asks me to start a new character with them, like one of my cousins, I will probably say no. And the reason I'll say no is because I know Croctopia is coming around the bend, and when I have to do it, I'm gonna literally have to take like week-long breaks in between leveling like 3 levels, because it is such a pain in the ass for this world for me to do. Another thing about Croctopia is that all of the mobbing areas look the exact same. Not only the long hallways where you do your mobbing, but also the dungeons where you have to fight the bosses. I have 2 low levels that I have done the full base worlds with, so that is Croctopia to Dragonspire, and I did it within like the past like 2 months for 2 different characters, so you can imagine how much pain I was in, you know, doing that because Croctopia. But I didn't realize how much and how lazy the developers were with Croctopia, because all the mobbing areas look the exact same. And in the dungeons, like where you have to go in the sigil and then you go and fight a boss inside those little dungeons where it's like a one boss, but like it's an instance, I don't understand. They use the exact same models. That is so completely lazy. I cannot that is so incredibly lazy. And I don't have complaints for like Imperia or like Chrysalis, where they do the same thing where you go into the sigil and then you have to fight the boss. Chrysalis and Imperia don't look as ugly and like drab and dingy as Croctopia does. And honestly, when I heard that they were redoing Wizard City, I was like why would you not want to redo Croctopia? Have you seen Croctopia? Have you seen how dingy and ugly it is? I just didn't understand. So, moving on past Croctopia, we have number 14, Celestia. This may come as a shock to some of you because I have heard very good things about Celestia, how much people love Celestia, how much of a change of pace it was from the original base worlds into a new revival era of Wizard101. However, I very much so dislike Celestia. Celestia is far too drawn out. The puzzles are mind-numbingly easy for being this late in Wizard101. For example, in the final dungeon of Celestia, the puzzles are just so easy. I think that the puzzles in like Aquila, those are pretty good. Like where you have to move like the chess pieces around and you have to figure out what beats what else. But like there's no penalty to the final dungeon of Celestia if you do the puzzle completely wrong. You just have to redo it. Whereas with like the chessboard in Aquila, you actually have to fight a whole separate boss if you mess up the puzzle, which I think is a pretty good idea and it's a good penalty. Now, the next point I'm going to bring up about Celestia is one of the biggest reasons why I dislike it so incredibly much. So the big hype around Celestia when it came out was the new astral spells. Now, when you think of astral spells, what do you think of? Because personally, the only thing I think of that is useful to me is the enchantments. The moon and the star schools don't do anything for the rest of the game after you get them, let alone do they do anything at level 50? They are completely and utterly useless. I, for one, have never used a moon or a star school spell on my level 125 in my defeat to the end of the game. I can't recall one time where I had to use it either mobbing, doing boss fights, farming Darkmoor. I can't think of anything on those three very important parts of Wizard101. And for those of you that are going to come for me in the comments and say, well, you had to use conviction while fighting in Darkmoor. No, because I use Stunblock, which is probably more effective than the conviction, considering conviction does not have a 100% chance to block a stun. When I recall my time in Celestia, which was quite a bit ago, the only part that I remember is the floating lands. And I think that this is the above water part, so where you're not underwater, which says a lot because for the fact that the rest of the worlds in this game are above water, besides Celestia and that street on Triton, what's it called? Crab Alley? Crab Alley is underwater, but that's not a world within itself, so that doesn't count. The fact that the only part of Celestia I remember is the part where you're above water, like what does that tell you? It tells you that the underwater parts look so similar to one another that I don't remember any of that, besides the fact that you get above the water and you finally start questing above the water, because that's the only change of pace in Celestia. It's all the same stuff. One part of Celestia that I can praise though is of course the Sun School spells. This is probably the only astral spell I will ever use. You know, of course I'll train some of the moon and the star, but the Sun School is one that I use every time I'm in a mob fight, every time I'm questing, every time I do Darkmoor. The Sun School is the only set of spells from the whole astral craze that I use. It's definitely the only astral school spell that you should be using from the moment you get it until you reach the end of the game. Number 13, Mushu. Mushu is another world I've played many of times. I think that the fact that I've played it so many times and I'm kind of sick of it factors into its rating on this list. So the Asian concept for me personally, you know, someone that's mayonnaise, it hit the nail right on the head for me, but I'm also mayonnaise, so I can't really speak to like the whole Asian concept because I have no like cultural or traditional reference to base my liking of the Asian style of Mushu on. I know that they kind of smashed together a bunch of cultures from Asia. There isn't one that is selectively focused on. If there was one, I would probably say Japanese culture. There's a lot of elements like the dojos and the sakura trees, and yeah, that's really all I know about the Asian part of Mushu. However, Mushu has so many things that are individualistic to just Mushu. If you ask someone that hasn't played Wizard101 for a very long time what worlds that they remember, I'm talking about like maybe like 10 years, like 9 years, 8 years. If you ask them, oh, what worlds do you remember from Wizard101? I guarantee they will tell you Mushu, because there's just something that sticks out about Mushu that is not like any of the other worlds in Wizard101. The concept is completely different from any world we have now and probably any world that we will get in the future. However, just like Croctopia's problem, all the mobbing areas look the exact same. There's a lot of running around, there's a lot of boss fights, and the build up to the end of Mushu is hyped so much. But when you get to the final boss, which is Jade Oni, who has 7,000 health, and it's just Jade Oni, how could they hype up a boss that much? How could they like make you do all these final dungeons and then you get to the last boss fight and it's just weak Jade Oni? It's such like a complete letdown. There's no final dungeon. There's no cool animation that ends the rest of Mushu. It's just Jade Oni. However, the areas that do look different from one another, they don't go unnoticed, most certainly. There is a lot of continuity with one another in parts of Mushu, like the bamboo, the koi ponds, and the shrines. It's also a very detailed world where there's shrines and stuff in places that you don't have to go questing, just to add to the effect and continuity of the world. You never forget that you are in Mushu and what world you are doing. And also the concept. You never forget the concept of the world. The theming of the world as a whole definitely is never forgotten as you're doing Mushu, and it's overall just a really aesthetically pleasing world despite the areas looking very similar to one another and the final boss fight of Mushu being extremely lame. The aesthetics of the world certainly make up for what the questline does not. Number 12, Avalon. I didn't realize how much I disliked Avalon until I went back there briefly to farm for a magma pea for my cousin. But the quest line is very boring. The boss fights are very boring. The mobbing is very boring. All the bosses and enemies blend together in my head. I can't recall the name of any boss in Avalon. I can't even recall the name of any mob in Avalon, to be honest with you. And the sidewalks are so fucking thin. Even reading the summary of the world is incredibly boring to me. Avalon is a world full of wonder and history. Whose history in particular? Why, Ravenwood's very own Merle Ambrose came from Avalon. I can't make this shit up. It really is this boring to read this. With lush green trees and mythical creatures, it seems like nothing could go wrong in the beautiful world. But Morganth has trouble brewing. Doesn't Morganth have trouble brewing in literally every single world after the base worlds that you play in. It's not really a change of pace at all. This world kind of just seems like pointless filler. Like, KI didn't have an idea for another world, so they decided to give Merle Ambrose some backstory and lore about him. Oh, yeah, we'll just create this stupid, useless, medieval, shitty world, and I don't know, we'll just say Ambrose is from there. Who gives a shit about him? No one cares about his backstory, to be honest. It's definitely a world that does not stick out to me when I recall my time on Wizard101. It doesn't stick out to me at all. I kind of breezed through it. I don't remember any of the quests. I don't remember any of the storyline. I don't remember any of the characters I interacted with when I was in Avalon, and I don't really care about Merle Ambrose's backstory. Sorry, Merle. Number 11, Grizzleheim. Now, Grizzleheim, I'm sure that we can all agree, is a grind to get through. It's an extremely, extremely long world. Like, it literally spans the entirety of the game, I'm pretty sure. I think you unlock Grizzleheim at like level 25, and then you do the storyline that you're supposed to, and then you wait another 5 levels, and then you get another area, and then it's the same continuous cycle until you reach a certain point, and then you get Winter Tusk unlocked, and then you do Winter Tusk. Also, the XP, because KingsIsle doesn't want you to get off track in the main worlds, considering Grizzleheim is a side world, is very minimal. You're basically just doing it to unlock the spells that you get in Winter Tusk or in Grizzleheim. I'm not sure. I never even completed Grizzleheim, to be honest. Like, I did maybe like the first like 3 rounds of level 5ing it, and then I quit because I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this stupid shit for a couple of useless spells I'm probably never gonna use. I don't even know what spells you get from it. Don't you get fuel? Is fuel the one for fire? I don't know. Now, I'm one that cares deeply about the graphics in the games that I am playing. So, Grizzleheim, oh my god. The color scheme of Grizzleheim is really dark and dingy, but you have this like beautiful little cute rainbow bridge when you enter Grizzleheim, which completely like contrasts the rest of the world, which is disgustingly dingy. Like, there's these long like cedar pitchforks in the ground, you know what I'm talking about? Like these long cedar logs that are like pointy on the top, and they're like everywhere. They're supposed to be a fence. And then there's the really dark brass bars that are supposed to be the gates, and then all the dirt on the ground. It's not a very aesthetically pleasing world, but you have this cute little rainbow bridge when you walk in. Like, I don't understand why you would do this. Like, why wouldn't you just put like a wood bridge in there? I guess like the rainbow like pops out, and when you think of Grizzleheim, you think of rainbow bridge. Yeah, I don't know, maybe that's why they added it. Maybe I just like rainbows. I'm not sure why they did that, and there's something in my eyeball that is fun. I'm thinking like maybe if they redid Grizzleheim with the updated Wizard City graphics, I might like it a tad bit more. But the color scheme for my poor graphic designer eye is just hurting so bad when I go into Grizzleheim and see all these like dingy, dark places that have no color combination. When you have like a rainbow bridge, you don't put like a dark, dingy, like dirt texture on the ground. You don't do that, KingsIsle. I don't like how KI forces you to do one of their side worlds that gives little benefit of anything besides a few spells. I don't like that. I literally have nothing nice to say about Grizzleheim, so I'm just gonna say screw the spells and skip the world, because I probably will never do Grizzleheim in the rest of my life. Number 10, Azteca. Honestly, the whole Mayan and Inca culture, it was never really that interesting to me. I don't mean any disrespect if you like love Maya and Inca culture, But even when I was in like 7th grade and we were studying the ancient civilizations, like we talked about like the Mayas and Incas, I was like, okay, I'm ready to like learn about somewhere else. Like the whole African civilization was more interesting to me. Chinese civilization was a lot more interesting to me than like the Aztecs and the Incas. I don't know, I just didn't find anything. I guess temples are kind of cool. Yeah, the temples are kind of cool. But more than that, I don't really care much about it. It's definitely not my favorite ancient world civilization, let me just say it like that. Comment below what your favorite world ancient civilization. No, I'm just kidding, don't do it. So the biggest problem is like something that I had with Grizzleheim 2 is like the whole aesthetic and theming of the world. It is a lot better in Azteca, I will give them that. It definitely is not as bad as Grizzleheim, but the mobs and the friendlies alike, their character models are gigantic and they are very shittily textured, and like the texture like stretches over them and it looks kind of grainy when you go up close to them and like you look at them. I wouldn't expect much else from King's Isle, but like, why did you decide to make such a big model with really like stretched out textures that look disgusting? Like, the models are huge, and that's another problem. They're like rhinos basically. I think that's like, rhinos are dinosaurs. I don't know what they are, honestly. Yeah, I don't know why they made such huge models that were really ugly. Like you could have made like a nice like kind of cool like huge model, but you made like a really big ugly model. So I don't know what to say. Like, good job. The storyline is annoyingly drawn out, and there's barely any sidewalks inside the caves. I'm just gonna be real here, like I kind of really dislike the worlds that don't have sidewalks. So the music is really not that good in Azteca unless you're into like the ancient like yodeling. So if you're not into ancient yodeling, you definitely won't like the music like me. I usually mute my game when I'm playing Azteca and I just pop open a YouTube video or listen to like Spotify or something like that because I'm not down for that ancient yodeling. I don't know, not my cup of tea. Number 9, Mirage. We're getting into the worlds where I don't necessarily hate like all the other worlds that were on this list before. And we're not exactly in the spot where I'm like actually liking and enjoying playing the world. We're kind of in that sweet middle ground where I have really no opinion on the world, but I will give my commentary about why I really don't have an opinion on the world. So Mirage is a genuinely challenging world, and I love challenge in video games. Not if it's like extremely difficult. Like that's not fun. Like if people are having to look up tutorials online on how to finish it, like come on, like that's a little too hard. But if you are able to do it yourself, like if you're able to do the puzzle yourself, I don't know, some puzzle games like Portal and Portal 2 and stuff like that, they're a little bit challenging, which is actually enjoyable to do. But Mirage is actually really difficult. Bosses like Bellic, which is a boss that I will never ever forget when it comes to Wizard101. He is the hardest boss I think I've ever fought besides the people in like Darkmoor and stuff like that. But he's definitely difficult to kill, and honestly Bellic himself saves Mirage from being like one of the worlds with Croctopia and Mushu. Mirage was the first time I ever had trouble in killing a boss in Wizard101, and it kind of brought back the initial feelings of the game. It kind of felt like I was like having to learn the ropes once again, like when I did way back in like 4th grade when I first started playing Wizard101. And it was a really refreshing feeling that the game was finally difficult for me to get past once again. I know I had to try to fight Bellic many times, maybe like 3 or 4 times for just one single quest because he was so hard to kill for me solo. And I don't think you're allowed to do him with another person, so and you cannot teleport in which was such a bitch move by KingsIsle, but at the same time, like, I'm really thankful that they did that, because I know I just would have asked my cousin to help me with it, and he would have just helped me and I would have gotten past it easy peasy. But Mirage has a lot of bosses like that where you can't teleport in or you can't help anyone. And like I mentioned before, it's kind of re-experiencing and having to relearn the game all by yourself once again, like you did in the beginning when you first started playing Wizard101. I feel like Mirage separates the intense players from the lightweight players. The players that, I don't know, like they could fight a boss and then like quit because they don't really care. But the intense players, like they'll keep trying and trying and trying until they can finally get through. And I think that that's a really good marker to have in your game, that you can meet people that are like you. If you're in Mirage and you finally get past a really hard boss, you can meet people that are like you and that are intense into playing the game, whereas lightweight players will just go talk in the comments like they do every time they can't fight a boss. Number 8, Dragonspire. The final dungeon of Dragonspire is actually really satisfying to do because it feels like you are making an impact on the game. Like there's like a whole sequence of like really badass dialogue, and you have Malice there who's like hovering in the air like playing an instrument or some shit. I forgot what he's doing. But it's a really cool ending to the base sequence of Wizard101. And it actually feels like you are making an impact on the whole Wizard101 world as a whole. The quest areas are very much so different from one another. What I remember from Dragonspire is there being like this really cool dungeon where you're walking forward and then the lava parts and like you're walking in the middle. It's a really cool animation. And then I remember another area where there's like a bunch of spiders and like a bunch of like crystals, and you have to kill the spiders for the crystals or like collect the crystals. I forgot what it is, but I do remember there being some really cool and different areas in Dragonspire. Although it's not challenging in the slightest to get through Dragonspire, it's also not a grind to get through, which is enjoyable. At least it's not a grind for me. Like Grizzleheim is a grind for sure. It's not on that level for me. It's like I'm kind of just like going along with my day and like playing Wizard101. It's not like I'm like, oh my god, get me out of here. Number 7, Zafaria. Mirror Lake is probably the best thing that KingsIsle could have done for Zafaria. It's a quick run, it's a quick mega snack, and if you're only like 20 away from leveling your pet up to mega, it certainly is the best way to conserve energy and also get a mega snack. Like it's such an easy run to do. If you just bring someone on that's like a level 125 and is like a storm and you're whatever, it doesn't even matter what level you are, they could probably just drag you along for it and do it within like 15 minutes because it is such an easy dungeon to run and it's not that tedious to get through, which is why I said it's probably the best thing that KingsIsle could have done for Zafaria. I actually really love the mobs. I love how they're like tigers and lions and like hippos, are they? They're zebras, not hippos, they're zebras. I think that there is a lot of continuity from area to area, meaning that when you walk into like a new mobbing area, it's not like you're in a whole different world. It's very much so continuous, or has a lot of continuity throughout the rest of the world. Like when you first walk into Zafaria, it seriously feels like you're on like a safari ride, like you're in the middle of like the jungle and you're like seeing all these animals for the first time. I also really love how there is a little marketplace, which of course like no one uses except the recipe merchant, but it really is a cool little area to add, and I can't think of any other area that has like a little like fake marketplace where it kind of just like adds to the effect of the world and it makes you feel like you're really in the culture that the world is inspired from. And last but not least for Zafaria, the concept of having to rescue the wizards and fill them back in the picture, and whenever you get one, like it pops up on your screen, like you can like check who you need to get left in the picture. That's a really cool concept, and that's something that we haven't seen repeated since Zafaria. So maybe like, I don't know, I guess it'd be too much of a copy to repeat that whole like missing picture, find the kids in the missing picture, and then you complete a safari. I guess it'd be like kind of too much of a copy. Like how could you redo that and not copy Safaria? But it was a really cool concept, and it was something that we had never seen before, which is something that always adds points to my rankings on these lists. And number 6, Chrysalis. This is another one of those worlds that I don't remember much from because it was such a breeze to get through. Maybe I was just like in a really big questing mood and I breezed through it in like 2 days. Or maybe it genuinely is like a shorter world. I don't really remember, but I don't really have any ill feelings towards it. It's another one of those worlds like the ones that I mentioned prior that I'm kind of just like neutral on. I don't really mind doing and I don't dread doing them. I've heard from other players in Wizard101, and by other players I mean my cousin who I keep talking about, that Chrysalis has some of the best music. I won't turn my sound off when I'm doing Chrysalis if the music is on. I don't really like have any opinion on the music, but some people say it's some of the best in the game, so I don't know. I won't like turn it off like I will with Azteca, but it's not like I'm like turn it on for just to listen to it. However, Chrysalis is very dark and dingy to me, but it's not the same kind of dark and dingy that Grizzleheim is. I feel like Grizzleheim is like accidentally dark and dingy. Like it just looks so bad. It's just, I don't know. The graphics in Grizzleheim look worse than what Wizard City looks like. They should have done Grizzleheim over before they did Wizard City over, because Grizzleheim looks 1,000 times worse than Wizard City ever did. But Chrysalis isn't the same kind of dark and dingy. Like Chrysalis is actually well made. I don't really know how I feel about like the dark and dingy. Like it's the whole concept of the world, yes, but maybe it's just I don't like the darkness of the world, and like it kind of like spooks me out when I have to do like a dark and dingy world. I don't know. I don't feel any kind of way towards how dark it is. For being dark and dingy, Chrysalis uses color schemes that don't normally go well together, and I'm sure a lot of you have never recognized this before because it's just like the graphic designer in me like pops out when I go into Chrysalis. But they use like bright like fluorescent oranges, and they'll use like deep purples, which are colors that you wouldn't traditionally think go well together, but they manage to like do it, and I don't know how, but it just looks appealing to the eye. I don't know, like I said, I don't have any ill feelings towards Chrysalis. I remember being able to do it really quick, so that's why I got placed here on the list. Number 5, Aquila. We're finally getting to the point in the video where I actually really like the worlds. Like if I were to recommend somebody a world in Wizard101, I don't know how they would get to it, because if you're level 1, then I don't know. I would probably say one of the upcoming numbers on this list, because I really like the styling of these worlds. There's like a truck going by outside my house. Do you hear it? What the fuck is going on? Oh, it's a plow. We've been getting so much snow because I live in the snowiest part of the United States. Like, look it up. The part of New York I live in is the snowiest place statistically in the United States. And so we've been getting literally so much snow. And so there's a fat plow going by outside my house right now. I'm sure like the traffic is really bad. Good thing I don't have to go out. Anyways, back to the video. Number 5 is Aquila, because this is a me thing. If you don't like Greek mythology, you're not gonna like this world. When I was a kid, I was so into Greek mythology. I read every single book in the Percy Jackson series. I read every single book in the continuation series. Forgot what it's called because it's been so long. I used to write like Percy Jackson like spin-off stories, or like fan fiction, if you want to call it that. I was like 11 years old, so can it really be classified as fan fiction if I didn't know I was writing fan fiction? I don't know. But like I was one of the kids in Camp Half-Blood, and like I was one of the big 3, which are the gods that aren't supposed to have kids, but they have kids anyway. Each one of them does. Did I just spoil that? Sorry if you didn't read it by now, then you're missing out. I used to write like stories about Greek mythology, and I think that's why I love Aquila so much. I know a lot about Greek mythology that I like really don't need to know at this stage of my life. Like it's really irrelevant to my everyday life, but I know it anyway. Anyways, even though there isn't that much to do in Aquila besides the dungeons like Tartarus and Mount Olympus, they're some of the most farmed and talked about for their level in the game. Mount Olympus has some of the best level 20 or 30 gear that you can get in Wizard 101 for that level. The Greek mythology theme, even inside the dungeons, not like only in the commons area, outside the dungeons, is prominent the entire time. You never forget that you're in Aquila. You never forget that it's a Greek themed world. You are always reminded. And I just want to remind you guys that the boss that you can get the Skyer and Hasta from has the coolest single attack animation. It's a really weak spell, but that animation was made just for him, and it is such a cool animation. If you've never done Mount Olympus, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. He has an attack that is single just to him, and it was made just for him. It is really cool, hands down. Maybe coolest boss animation in the game. I don't know. Down to the puzzles and the dialogue, you will never forget that you are in Aquila, and that is why I really love and enjoy Aquila. As I said, if you don't like Greek mythology, you're not gonna like Aquila, but it has a very special place in my heart, that is for sure. Number 4, Wizard City. It feels morally wrong to me to call myself a Wizard 101 player and rank Wizard City even this far up on the list, but there isn't much about Wizard City. Like, there's no like, I mean, I guess there's a charm to it because it's where everything starts. It's like your inauguration into this whole entire game. So I don't know, there isn't much that like sticks out to me as like, whoa, I like that. I think that the introduction to players into the game and how to play it is done really well. The streets are really easy, so you can breeze through them, which I really love. I love how I don't have to spend like 2 days on it like I do with some worlds. I can kind of grind through Wizard City in like a few hours, and that's really nice. I think you spend just enough time in Wizard City to not make it annoying. Can't say the same for Croctopia, but you heard that already, so I'll move on. That's really all I have to say. Like, there isn't too much about Wizard City like hate, or there isn't too much to love. I think that if you could do like / time spent and see your rundown for how much time you spent in each world, I'm pretty sure everyone would have Wizard City as their number 1. Just because, not just because your dorm room is in Wizard City, also because it's where everything is. Like, it's like a centralized place where everything is, like the pet stuff, the bazaar, obviously everyone sells the bazaar, spell trainers for a little bit until you get like your new spell trainer, which, yeah, there isn't much to hate about Wizard City. Like, you gotta love it. Number 3, Polaris. We're at the point in the video and on the list where I actually really love these next few worlds. I want you guys to guess what my number 1 and my number 2 are in the comments below. Obviously, process of elimination, but also like you don't know if the one place is in the 2 place and the 2 place is the one, like, you don't know. You don't know. Tell me what you think my favorites are for my 1 and my 2. Okay, moving on to Polaris. The Russian Revolution concept is something that I would have never thought it would weasel its way into Wizard 101. So I took AP European history, which kind of covered Russia like a tiny little bit. It was more centralized and, like, you know, obviously England is a big part. Just like the whole, like, that European area, not like Eurasia, which is Russia is basically Eurasia. I just thought that the minuscule amount that I learned, which was the Russian Revolution, I did learn about that. I love the whole revolution concept. If we're talking about revolutions in history, my favorite revolution is the French Revolution. I'm kind of basic. I'm sorry. Comment your favorite revolution. No, don't. Just the concept, the fact that like it's the penguins is so funny because we've also never seen penguins in the game, and I can say this with my full confidence, with my full heart, with everything I have. The commons area in Polaris is most certainly the most beautiful commons area you will ever see in Wizard 101. If you look up at the sky when you're in the Polaris commons area, it is gorgeous. Like the Aurora Borealis. That was so hard for me to say for some reason. I love the Aurora Borealis. I'm gonna try. I think it's just so pretty, and the fact that they added that shows that their developers got a vision and they did it. because they did a really good job with the commons area in Polaris. I think Polaris, out of the new worlds, is probably my favorite, just because the concept and the whole aesthetic and styling of the world is absolutely gorgeous. Obviously, it's not my number 1 or my number 2. It's in my number 3 spot for a reason. I feel like the world flew by for me, which isn't a problem, but when I was doing those quests, I was really dreading doing them. So I don't that doesn't really make any sense, because normally when you're bored, stuff goes by slower. But I breezed through it, but at the same time, I was like, oh, gotta kill and collect 8 more things again. With that said though, I do believe that even though the quests are really annoying, I don't think that there's a lot of those like defeat and collect 8. Like, I don't think that there's a lot of those which are incredibly annoying. I just think that the quests are different. They're just really annoying to do. They diverge from each other, which is a positive thing, because you don't want like the same quest like 10 times in a row like some of the other worlds do. Cough, Croctopia, cough. When you finish Polaris, it feels like you have actually helped the penguins and their revolution, their government overthrow. It's a really good feeling. Guys, help the penguins. Go play Polaris. It is a fantastic world. Number 2. Marleybone. I'm sure most of you saw this coming. Out of the base worlds, Marleybone is for certain my favorite world. I don't even have to like think about it. I know Marleybone is my favorite. It's such a classy and beautiful world. I've always liked like the styling of England and like how the buildings look, like how the streets look, how the parks look. I've always loved that, and they incorporate that really well into the game. I would say like they incorporate it so much to the point like it's kind of overbearing a little bit. Like they just add like so much from England that is actually in England. It doesn't even look realistic. It looks like the set of like a movie, because there's so much like English stuff in this small little area. For example, there's like these guards, those 2 guards in the area where you first walk in. They're like in that gate, and they're like guarding stuff. You think that on every street in England they have those guards? No, I don't think so. Not only that, but there's just I can't like pinpoint stuff. Like there's just so much in such a little area that is like so English. It's a little overbearing, but I love it at the same time because I love how England looks. I don't know. England has always been a place that like I've wanted to go to, and has pretty historical significance that is really interesting to me. And I think that King's Isle incorporated that really well into the England in their game, Marleybone. I think that the fact that they are all dogs is really clever and kind of like interesting and cute. I don't know. I kind of like the dogs. I don't know. Dogs are cute. What do you want? The music. Here's where I'm gonna say this. You guys say Chrysalis has the best music. I'm gonna say Marleybone has the best music. I will go out of my way to unmute my game if my game is muted, because I love the Marleybone music so much. Like I'll stop my Spotify the second I go from Croctopia to Marleybone. The mobs are fairly difficult to kill for your level if you are playing solo, I think. I don't know, they were for me. If you don't have good gear, they're pretty hard. And I got pretty shitty gear. Yeah, I don't farm Mount Olympus like I should. The graphics look like new Wizard101 too, which I don't understand, because I think Grizzleheim got either released in the initial base game or got added on later. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't around when that happened. Tell me something. How does Marleybone look better than Croctopia and Grizzleheim combined when it is the second world in the game, and Grizzleheim got added later and Croctopia is the first world, so they should have put more thought into it. I literally don't understand how Marleybone looks like one of the brand new worlds, like Polaris or Chrysalis. I think that that Marleybone, like I mentioned before, Polaris is really beautiful. I think Marleybone rivals Polaris's beauty. Some people complain about like the cartoony sky. I think that the really cartoony, starry sky is like really charming in a way. I don't know. It also looks like a flat texture. Like if you look at it, just looks like a piece of paper. Like it doesn't look like a domed texture like they should with a ceiling in a world. Do you know what I mean? If you don't know what I mean, then ignore me. It's really charming. It's really cheesy. But cheesy in a good way, like an endearing kind of cheesy. I don't know. I really love like Marleybone. It will always have a special place in my heart for certain. Number 1, can you guess what it is? Imperia. The graphics and the styling of this world are delicious. They like make my mouth water every time I walk into Imperia. Imperia. My mouth is just watering thinking about it. Like I can't. Like Imperia is just so gorgeous. The ambience, the atmosphere, and the music fit together like a puzzle. There's like not a hair even out of line in Imperia. Like it's such a gorgeous world. The music is gorgeous, which is something that I can't say for most of the other worlds besides Marleybone. The bosses are also challenging. The mobs are relatively challenging to kill. And the quests like diverge from one another, meaning that like they aren't like one another. They're all different and they kind of all each have their own little charm to them. I don't know. It's not like kill and collect 8. It's not like that. Like you're not doing that. I think KingsIsle like gave that up at a certain point, or they do it extremely rarely because I heard feedback like that we didn't like it and they stopped doing that shit because I don't like that shit. It's like if you don't have your shit together in Wizard101 by the time you get to Imperia, I think you're gonna have a pretty big hard time completing it, to be honest, which is good because it adds a challenging aspect to the game. And I talked about like challenging aspects in games when I talked about Mirage, but yeah, it makes it pretty fun. So thanks, KI. Okay, and a last point I want to make for this, it's probably like the most like insignificant point on this list, but the Just Dance mission. Oh my god, this quest is literally so funny and interesting. Next time I get a character up to playing, I'm gonna record it so that I can just like rewatch it back. If you've never gotten this far into the game, look up Just Dance Wizard101 on YouTube and like watch people do the quest, because playing it is so fun. It's just Dance Dance Revolution. There is not any other quest in the whole entire game that is like the Just Dance quest. It reminded me when I was like in 1st and 2nd grade and my brother would watch me, like babysit me, and he would be sitting on the couch on his laptop playing Dance Dance Revolution like with the keys, and I would be like playing the Wii or something, and I would like look over and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. It also gives you a really cool badge called Shiny Dancer, which is a reference to Elton John's song Tiny Dancer. And also the badge looks like it took some effort to get when you literally just played Dance Dance Revolution for a whole mission. Anyways, that's going to conclude this video. Give me your like top 5 favorite worlds, or give me your top 5 least favorite worlds. I don't know. I think that this video was really fun to make, so I want to hear what you guys had to think. I want to know if you guys have to disagree with me anywhere, because yes, we will disagree, and that is completely fine. Like I said before, just know my opinion matters more than yours. Okay, let's continue on. I'm just kidding, by the way, when I say that. I'm not actually being real, okay? Don't like burn me at the stake, okay? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you that watches my videos and finds me entertaining and so. What is this? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing day. Pray for me. It is gonna be -10 tomorrow. It's like I'm living in Canada, but I live on like the border of like Canada and New York. Okay, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you. Goodbye.